right? Because investing is not risky. Being uneducated is risky, right? And so you'll get better as you do it. And again, as your knowledge goes up, your risk comes down.
Welcome back to the Money Seed Podcast. Today, my guest is Curtis May from the Financial Wealth Advisors. Curtis is a financial strategist. He's a fellow podcaster, and he is a financial expert who has been helping people become financially free for over 30 years. Curtis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Gay. Good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to tell you both things I know.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, Curtis, what does financial independence mean to you?
So I always use, and I have my clients this, when in our first meetings, what does that mean? Because most people can tell you what they don't want. They can't tell you what they want. So the definition I use is being able to live like you want to live from the income from your personally invested assets. Okay. That's financial freedom, because financial freedom is a capability. Retirement to age. See, a lot of people focus on retirement. I want them focused on, in a decade or less, preferably being able to have assets that generate cash flow over and above their expenses. That's what you're working for.
And what kind of places or solutions can people find cash flow, right? Because most people are just given this advice. It's like, yeah, just get a W-2 job, put your money in 401ks. And then when you're in your 60s, you can start kind of withdrawing money from the 401ks. But usually people are not given this advice that, hey, you should get some cash flow. So where can you direct people to get cash flow?
Well, I educate. That's where, so I direct them to my podcast, right? And your podcast, right? And, but the thing is, so what you want to think in terms of investing is a plan, right? It's not a product. There's no financial product in and of itself that's going to take you to glory. So you have to reject typical financial advice, right? Because there's two schools of thought when it comes to money. So let me answer that question first, and I'll come back and give you the backstory behind what I said. So there's 4 asset classes that when it comes to, and a lot of this stuff can be found in Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I just want y'all to know, Curtis has no original thoughts. I've just been working with people and I've kind of synthesized it, but I got it. I learned it. So that means y'all can learn it, right? Because I was a typical buy term investor difference, max out your 401k, register rep. I was that guy for the first 15 years of my career. So I know, been there, done that. And I'm going to tell you that doesn't work. All right. And so what you want to do is you want to buy assets. Well, what's an asset? Something that puts money in your pocket. Okay. Well, there's 4 asset classes. So if you successfully clues, Gay, we like to tell people, and if you study how not corporations, but institutions make money. If you study the Buffetts, the Ray Dalios, the successful investors, and you look at the Ford 400, here's what you'll see. Millionaire Next Door, start breaking that stuff apart, right? So I want to give y'all a reference. I don't just pull stuff out the air. And what you'll find is that they primarily build businesses, they buy real estate, they buy paper assets outside of equities, outside of REITs, paper is a bigger conversation. So paper, tax liens. I got clients that do private lending. I got clients that do, what are those things called? Life settlements. They'll invest in syndications, I got clients that in business, they have ATM machines. They are real estate investors. So people that want control of their money, first you got to want control of your money. Commodities, like people say oil, gold and silver commodities, but I don't view them as investing. But like I met a guy that I'm going to have on the show. We're going to talk about one guy I'm looking for, I haven't met yet, agriculture and how you can buy like coffee farms in Panama, which I love that kind of stuff, and cash flow. And then another guy I met recently on oil and gas, like how you can do that and how they cash flow and how you can buy into those type of thing. You got to have a certain level of sophistication. So if you're just like, not just, but if you're a W-2 person, one of the things that you've got to do is you have to think, right? Because what I teach are the 3 rules of investing. 1, you got to invest in what you know, or you have to invest in knowing. All right. See, because what we've been taught is to look for easy. So 401k is easy. They just take it out your pay. You've got these fund managers. They must be really smart and they've showed me the charts that my funds will average 12% over the next 30 years if I just buy index funds. I have a whole talk on actual versus average, right? Because math is not money. Money's not math, and vice versa, right? And so that's what we're taught. But the results are at 60, the average person in the country has less than $150,000 in a 401k, right? So that now think about this. If let's say you had $1 million. And the safe withdrawal rate in typical financial advice is 4%, right? So 4% of $1 million is 40,000. So, but you make 80. So you already have cut your income in half now, and the cost of living doesn't go down because you retired. So retirement's an age, but are you capable of living in the future like you live today? That's what you want. And so you got to look at, is what I'm doing taking me there? And because typical financial advice, all financial institutions operate with like banks, insurance companies, Wall Street. Here are the 4 rules that govern all financial advice. Okay, they want your money. They want it on a regular basis. They want to keep it as long as possible, and they want to give it back as slow as possible, if ever. Right. So because their objective is assets under management. And I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but you need to know because you still need like the financial industry, but you got to do it so that it works for you. Right now, we're set up to transfer our wealth, and we're taught the money game by people that create the situations, control the outcomes so that they profit. They profit on you just playing the game, because you only know half the truth, right? And so what happens is a transfer means money's leaving. Like if you pay a tax you didn't have to pay, you transfer your wealth to the Treasury Department from their asset column to your asset column. That's a transfer, right? But see, it's worse than that, right? Because most people give away between like $1 and $3 million because it's not just the money, it's the opportunity cost of the money. So if you could get, let's say your average, you get 6% on your money. Well, that means your money doubles every 12 years, right? So if you paid $10,000 in tax you didn't have to pay, then it's not just the 10 you paid in tax, because that money opportunity cost is still working for whoever you gave the money to, right? So that means what did I say, every 12 years. So then 12 years, your 6 is worth 12, and your 12 is worth 24, and your 24 is worth 48. That's how much money you lost. Okay. And so you have to, what we teach people, Gabe, I'm gonna stop talking, I'm gonna take a breath, is to stop giving money away, right? You got to, first thing, everybody's chasing returns, but you give most of your daggone money away. You got to stop doing that. If you're going to create maximum wealth, you have to create maximum efficiency. So it's no thing. What you've got to do is invest in your education. You got to learn how money works. You've got to stop looking for the easy button, is my answer, and understand, what makes money. You got to read some books. You got to listen to some shows. There's no shortcut to it.
And Curtis, I keep hearing this phrase on your shows where you say the number one financial asset you have is knowledge.
Knowledge.
Right? And absolutely. And one of the things that, when the light bulb came on for me, is just how you mentioned, for example, most people put their money in a 401k, and if they're lucky, they're going to get a 10% return. Most of them are probably going to get like 8% or maybe even less. And then on top of that, they have fees. Most people don't even know what the fees are, but that financial company that's running that for you, they're probably going to take anywhere from 1%, maybe even 2% of their fees every year. And now your returns are even lower. So,
and let me pile on then. All right. So what are you doing with a qualified plan? You're not saving money in taxes. You're postponing taxes, right? So 90% of the U.S. households make less than $120,000 a year. Okay. So let's say you make $100,000 a year. Your effective tax rate is like 8.8%, right? So that means you put in $10,000, you're saving $800 a year in taxes. Okay. So now you're deferring taxes to 65. So like, oh, you'll be in a lower tax bracket when you go down. Well, do you think in the future, is the government going to need more money or less?
Oh, they're going to need more. Yeah, for
So
sure.
that means your taxes are not going down. Okay.
Correct.
And
I
so, you know what I mean? So now you are postponing it to where you may pay 20 or 30% or more when you withdraw it, because if you have $1 million, well, first of all, it may only buy like 400 and something $1,000 worth of stuff 30 years in the future, right? So now if you need to live on that money, you got to pull out more money than the safe withdrawal rate of 4%, to maintain your standard of living. So now you are paying 20, 25% or more. Well, so it's so much stuff with that there's so many other moving parts that, guys, you just got to educate yourself. We're not saying not do it. I don't know that personally I would do. I wouldn't do it past the match. I'll tell you that. And then, but it is good advice if you just want to stick your head in the sand and work and not think about this stuff. Then have at it, by all means, max out your 401k. Okay. But definitely don't call me, because I ain't that guy. You call your cousin in Primerica or something, and or whoever, right? Because that, as they say in Georgia, dog don't hunt. It's like you're going to be in for a rude awakening if you don't, wake up and learn and be willing to take a little bit more control of your money. That's because okay, what I say is the three rule. Your number one asset is you, right? You invest in your education, but you invest in meaning here are the three parts of that. You invest in your mindset. You invest in your skill set. Skills is what make money. What makes money. And then you invest in your network. Who do you know? And more importantly, who knows you? And so that's what you can do. How do you do that? I can read 8, 10, 12 pages a day. I can get into groups. I can listen to shows like this so that I can expand my what we call in our group the ceiling of complexity, right? Most people have a ceiling of complexity. Thank you, Dan Sullivan. And what happens is they're financially, right? And so their ceiling's low, so they're frustrated because they're banging their head against the wall because it's just they're frustrated by things they don't understand. So through listening to shows like yours, Gabe, they can hopefully we're helping them increase their ceiling of complexity, right? Their knowledge. As your knowledge goes up, your choices expand. And your anxiety comes down because now you're better equipped to deal with stuff that comes at you. And that's really what you want to work on.
And Curtis, you already mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I think is probably one of the best-selling personal finance books out there. And I think on one of your shows, you also mentioned The Richest Man in Babylon, which is also another favorite book of mine. 2 favorite books?
Yes.
What other books do you recommend that people read?
I recommend Becoming Your Own Banker by R. Nelson Nash. Because, we teach strategy, infinite banking. There's another book that I'm in the process of rewriting with the author, which is on the banking concept. It's called Money for Life, How to Thrive in Good Times and Bad by Jeffrey Reeves. So in about 3 months, you'll see the revised version of that with Jeffrey Reeves and Curtis May, because I'm working on that now. So just follow the website. You'll see when it comes out. But just because the book's about 15 years old and it was great work, and there's less charts in it, and I want people understand the process of banking, of learning how to control your capital, because it's just a money management system and not the product of life insurance, which people get too caught up in, which is another topic. But I like to teach that. So that's one of my favorite books on that. And then things like Economics in One Lesson. I like Laurel Langmeyer's book, The Millionaire Maker, because she has a great process of how to do that. I like Rich Dad's Guide to all the first 4 Rich Dad books, right? Mm-hmm. The Rich Dad's Guide, Cash Flow Quadrants, Rich Dad's Guide to Investing, Who Took My Money, How the Rich Get Richer, which is a more recent one, Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. So I've met him, and there's there's a bunch. I have y'all email me, kurtmay@gmail. I'll send you a list. I'm gonna put it into like a website. But right now, if you email me, if you don't deluge me, I'll just hey, nice to meet you. Here you go. I'll just attach my reading list to it. And
that's awesome.
So it's cool because it's your money, right? It's not Curtis's money, right? So I tell people, it can't be more important to me than it is to you. So you've got to make a decision that I want control of this thing.
I'll drop those book titles in the show notes. Curtis, let's get back to infinite banking for a little bit. So I'm in my mid 40s. I first heard the term infinite banking less than a year ago. And I was like, it kind of blew my mind. I'm like, wow, this is pretty wild. Tell us a little bit, like as a concise summary, what is infinite banking?
So infinite banking is a strategy. It's a strategy of cash flow management where we're showing people how to use properly structured dividend paying life insurance as a place to store cash. Okay. So if you're hearing it in the context and you don't hear those 5 things, they're not doing infinite banking. If you talk to somebody and they don't literally in the first 2 minutes of your conversation smack you over the head figuratively with Nelson Nash's book, Become Your Own Banker, they don't do infinite banking. Okay. And so it's that. So it's not about, so the way the framework gave how we teach it in our program at Practical Wealth is I teach something called principles-based planning, right? So principles drive strategy. Okay. So infinite banking is a strategy, right? It's a strategy of here's how banks make money and how can you structure their business model in your life. So it's really more about that. Banking is just a analogy for storage. Where do you store your cash? You have to capitalize. Everybody wants to invest, which is putting money out to make a return or cash flow. What you want to do is capitalize, create a store of value. And from that position, now you can look for places to deploy your capital, right? And so that's the strategy. And then strategy drives tactic. Tactic is a product that you buy, right? So properly structured dividend paying whole life is the tactic, the product to implement the strategy of banking. But guess what? The principle that precedes all that is saving 15 to 20% or more of your gross income. Like if you're not saving money, first thing I'm doing is I got to go in. We're going to look at your cash flow, look at where your money's going, and figure out why you been working for the last 30 years and you don't have 3 to 6 months of money saved up. Because if you don't have 90 days of cash, don't even talk to me about investing. You don't have any money yet. You haven't learned the difference between saving and investing. You haven't managed your cash flow, and that's step 1, right? So saving, and then we store the cash, and then now what our clients do. So we call it the Money for Life program. That's the process within our system. So, and the abbreviation of that is get money. So earn money, bank it. That means save it somewhere that allows you to be the bank where you can collateralize your savings, meaning you can borrow against it without liquidating your capital. Okay. So get money, bank it, borrow it, spend it, repay it. What does spend it mean? What do you spend it on? Major capital purchases. Okay, which we define as anything you can't pay for in full within your monthly cash flow. Okay, then you should finance that. We teach don't drain the tank, don't liquidate future money for current lifestyle events, right? So we can collateralize that. Now we can have our money go buy this thing, but still have our money over here in our policies still earning money, right? So we're not giving away our money, and it allows you to recapture opportunity costs. And the other thing that we spend it on, most of my clients are small business owners, real estate investors. So what we do is we teach them to save. And then there's all kinds of stuff. I had a guy on our show last week on my little study group I have for our clients. We talk about investing in non-performing notes, for example. Okay. And so you got to pick what you like. So it's not my job to tell you what to invest in. Right. But I want you prepared to whatever you've researched that you want to put money in. And so the banking equation is just, the magic question I ask people is, where do you store your cash? Because that's all it is. It's storage. It's a place to store cash. And then from that cash, you say, okay, because what we do is we teach velocity of money over accumulation. So you can create velocity through utilization, by making one asset do 3 or 4 jobs at the same time. We call that creating velocity through simultaneous use. That's what infinite banking does. And then we implement it with the tactics. So I specialize in that. But the challenge I see that where my business is structured is so many people focus on the product, but they don't have a game plan. So that's where we do something called a personal financial snapshot, where we do a 1-page financial plan for people based on the 5 principles of personal finance. And then once I get you saving, let me show you a superior place to store your liquidity, and let me show you how to use your liquidity to become more efficient or to buy or build cash flowing assets. So that's the method behind my madness, Gabe.
Tell me a little bit more about that concept of velocity. It sounds like you mentioned that one investment can do more than one thing for you. Give me an example of what that looks like.
So velocity of money. So there's 2 schools of thought when it comes to money. There's the accumulation theory, where if you're hearing like buy and hold, dollar cost average, buy term investor difference, max out your 401k, that's all the accumulation theory. That's what the financial institutions teach you. And then the other side of that equation is what we call the velocity method, right? So velocity of money it's not an investment, it's just an economic principle, which means you got to move money. So an example is, if you ever watch Shark Tank, right? And Mr. Wonderful, he talks about it all the time. So you'll hear it all the time. You got to recognize, he says, listen, I want to put my money out and I need to come back with friends, right? So he'll say, listen, if I put money in this deal, if I invest with you, when am I getting my money back, right? So he can do what? Put it in something else. Is that deal he invested in still throwing off cash flow and equity? Yes. But now so if your money's back, your risk is nil because you got all your capital back out and you move it in and out. So if y'all are real estate, if you ever hear the BRRRR method, buy, refurbish, refinance, repeat, that's velocity in the real estate business. If you're I spoke last March at the Laundromat Millionaire down in Florida. So they want bigger, more efficient machines because you can wash it and dry it faster, then people can get in and out faster, and you can turn that machine over to somebody else. So that's how they create velocity. Restaurants want get you in and out so they can turn that table over. So velocity is just an economic principle. So with life insurance, where we say you can create velocity through simultaneous use, well, if I pay an insurance premium, I've got a death benefit. I've structured it for early cash value. So now it's savings. So now it's earning dividends. I can now collateralize it, meaning let's say I've got $10,000 of cash value. Well, I could borrow $8,000 and go buy some other asset. So now I've got the insurance company's money, but my money is still in the policy earning interest and dividends. So I now have this other asset. Okay. They're charging me 4%. So when I take a loan I just took a loan for $5,000 for something. Well, I calculate, okay, I'm going to pay Curtis back at 10%, right? So now I'm going to pay 4% for the use of their money. So let's say I borrowed $10,000 for a round number, and I have an interest cost of $400. There's no free money, right? And then, but when I pay it back, I'm going to pay back $1,000. So that means I'm paying the insurance company back for use of their money. And then I'm going to add $600 because I always put a price on money back to my pool of capital. So now I've got $1. And I even talked about what the thing I bought was. I have clients that have enough cash in their thing to knock out hard money lenders. Right. So we'll sell a couple $100,000 in cash value. That doesn't show the cash flow she's generating from her properties. The properties that she bought for $150,000 that she's fixed, when she got done, there were $400,000, and she's refinanced, paid off her loans, and still has $150,000, $200,000 tax-free money. The policy doesn't show all of that. So you see, what people do is they focus on these stupid illustrations and they miss what's going on.
And it makes sense. Like the way you described it was, if you need some money, let's say you want to invest or you want to buy, like you said, a capital purchase, you would borrow it from your policy rather than, say, borrowing it from a bank or somewhere else.
If I had enough in there, I mean, you have to save it enough to get. You have to that's what goes back to capitalization. You got to save enough money to do that. You still want to use third party. Like initially, like people say, I want to get out of debt. You're not trying to get out of debt, okay? Because there's constructive debt and there's destructive debt. So if you're buying real estate, no, you want to use other people's money. Debt is money. Rich people use debt as money. So I think that that's why you read the Rich Dad stuff, because you've got to get out of that accumulation theory advice, all that Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman stuff, and they're great for that market segment. But if you're trying to go beyond that, then you have to be a little bit more sophisticated in your knowledge and your conversation and your ability to think, manage money, and you've got to really have a desire to have control. Like all of my clients know they know it's something wrong, and they know they can make what they're doing make more money than some index fund.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And that's what I'm noticing with my guests as well, right? Is getting back to my earlier comment about how most people stick their money in like a 401k or a mutual fund or whatever, and that thing is getting 8% a year, give or take. Whereas most of my guests who are actively investing, right? Whether it's notes, like you mentioned, whether it's real estate, whether it's buying an online business, whether it's doing a franchise, they're seeing average returns of like 15% to 20%, right? And when you project that out over 20, 30 years, that's a huge difference.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or real estate investors, infinite returns. You know, if you're in business and you have $1 and you put $1 in your business and make $2 by improving your marketing, by whatever, that's 100% return. You doubled your money, right? And see, so why would I put my money? So, because think about a fund, okay? And this is not even me. I'm paraphrasing Jack Bogle from the founder of Vanguard. You put up 100% of the money, you take 100% of the risk to maybe make 30% of the profits, if there's any profits at all. So I'm not saying not do that, but I don't know that. I know for me, I don't know about the rest of y'all. I'm not making that my primary strategy, right? Because what people think is investing really is investing. So if you go, and so I'll go back to this. So y'all heard of Warren Buffett, right? So how many have you heard of Benjamin Graham?
Yes.
Right. So that's Warren Buffett's and Charlie Munger's, their Graham value investing disciples, right? So in his book, The Intelligent Investor, the first chapter, this is a book about the stock market, mind you, is speculation versus investing. Chapter 1, right? And he said, this is an investment. And so hold this up to what you're taught what investment is today, right? An investment operation is one in which you have safety of principle. So if you put money in this deal, you're supposed to, if you put 50,000 or 5,000, you're supposed to at least get 5,000. That's your principal. You're supposed to get that back, and you have a reasonable opportunity to make a profit. Okay. He says, I'm paraphrasing, if he doesn't fit that definition, you are speculating. What's the word for speculate? Gamble. So now hold that. So when I talk about investment, that's what I mean. So we have to clear on the definition of stuff. So when people say save for retirement in your 401k, you're not saving. Let me define saving: safe, liquid, accessible, guaranteed. That's saving. Okay. And so so one thing I'll ask my clients is, should everybody be saving? And they'll go, yes. And I'll ask them, well, I said, Gabe, should everybody be investing? And they'll go, yes. I said, well, if you're in debt and you only have $1,000 or $500 or no money in the bank, should you be investing? No, you should not. Right. So it depends. So it's, where do you start? Well, you start with saving 15, 20% of your gross income. And I want 6 to 12 months liquid. Right. And so we use, so like the first month or 3 months, your emergency fund. And in my mind, what we teach is everything above that is your opportunity fund. Now, I'm not saying wait till you have that before you can do anything, but you can do little, what I call side hustles, or, building little cash machines. You can do stuff, but you should be working. So if let's say you flip a house or you do a wholesale deal, if you're in real estate, or if you're trading and you get a prop, you want to add that to your savings pile so you can build up your cushion. And then now as you got more money and you learn more, now you've got bigger swaths of capital to really get into some good stuff that are knowledgeable about. And now you've got the knowledge and the capital to be able to get yourself involved. So yeah, I've made all this sound hard. It is hard. It's simple, but it's not easy. See, that's what most people want. So but becoming is hard, right? And so you think about any of y'all that are good at anything, right? You've worked, you've practiced, you've studied. If you're a physician or you're a lawyer, you went to law school, doctors have residency, they've got to study this, they've got to study that, and then you're gonna go to specialty. Well, okay, I want that guy. I don't want somebody, I got this, LASIK surgery thing I got for $3,000 and I went through a weekend course. And I'm prepared to go in your eyes. I want people that are experts that spent the time to develop an expertise. So whatever you're good at, piano, when I was coming up playing basketball, I read George Gervin shot 600 shots a day. I started working out a schedule where I started shooting 500 or 600 shots a day. Tiger hits 1,000 golf balls a day, right? So if you're going to be good at anything, even with Kiyosaki in his book, it says, listen, you got to look at 100 properties, make offers on 10 to buy one. Most people don't want to do that. 100 properties. Y'all don't need to do that. I want to look at 3. This one looks good. I like the price. I'm going to buy it. You don't even know anything yet. Okay. Or you want to trade. Well, you need to trade without money till you understand what's going on, that kind of stuff. But see, everybody's such a hurry because they feel so behind the 8 ball and they trying to hit a home run. And, you can score a run by hitting 4 singles too.
The Millionaire Next Door, which is another favorite book of mine. I think you mentioned it on this show already. That's one of the things that the book really talked about. And also what my other guest, Tom Corley, talked about, who did a similar study to Millionaire Next Door. He studied wealth, is that it takes time to accumulate wealth. Like most people who are, financially independent or at least have a net worth of 2-3 million, most of them are in their 50s. Some of them are in their 40s, but it takes time to accumulate wealth, right? And so we have this culture where kids in their 20s, they see something on YouTube, they're like, I'm just going to do this click, 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 do this Amazon FBA business, and before you know it, I'll be driving a Bentley. And it's like it doesn't work that way. You're right. It's a slow game. It's a patient game. And what you said earlier about having I think you said 9 to 12 months of safety.
Yeah, 6 to 12
reserves,
months,
right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The good thing about that is that allows you to take risk, because if you want to start getting into like the 15 to 20% return range, whether it's real estate, whether it's notes, or whether you are assuming some level of risk. And it's much easier to assume that risk when you say, you know what, I could lose $20,000 or $30,000 on this deal. I hope I won't. But if I do, that's not going to impact my life. I will be okay.
And that's what you have to get to. And the other thing is, if you lose it, what you've done is you've added to your education, right? Because investing is not risky. Being uneducated is risky, right? And so you'll get better as you do it. And again, as your knowledge goes up, your risk comes down.
I like that one. Yes, investing is not risky. Not having education and knowledge is risky. I like that. I'm going to use that one, Curtis.
Yeah. Well, I got it from Kiyosaki, so, but yeah, and that's the thing, see, because I want people to understand the process. Like, even work with me, I'm the guide, right? If clients, because we actually work with clients and stuff, but I'm not, it's your money, right? So I always tell people I'm Yoda, you're Luke. Okay. And now the Force exists, and we got to go through the trials to help you become a Jedi. But you still have to go through the Jedi trials, be a Padawan, and then you can be the master, right? You're going to master your money. And
that's a great analogy. That's a great analogy.
For all my sci-fi nerds out there, hopefully that
Briefly getting back to the infinite banking strategy, in your experience, who is the ideal person, right? Who do you see, what's the ideal client look like who's going to see the biggest benefit from infinite banking?
You have to be, so here's what I look for. I need you to be coachable. Okay. It's not a rich person strategy. One of the things Nelson put in his book, he started out with, this is a book came out in 2000, Youth Justice for Inflation. He talked about the all American male. And so it was like, the guy made $28,500 a year. All right. So adjusted for inflation, that might be like 45,000 today, household income. So it's not can you save money? Can you whip what he calls Parkinson's law? Because most people spend every dollar they come in. And so you have to, because expenses rise to meet income. So if can whip Parkinson's law and you can say, well, okay, I make $5,000 a month and I'm willing to save 500 to 1,000 of it. You can do infinite banking. It's not that more. You have to have income. Like I can't steer a parked car, so you have to have some income. But and it's helpful because it's an insurance strategy if you're in decent health. But even if you can't, you can still do it because I had a pastor one time that he heard about it, he read the book, and my pastor actually, and he wanted to do it, but he was also 400 pounds and on dialysis, so that wasn't going to work. But he had a daughter that was healthy, and we insured her. He was the owner, and he funded it. So the funder controls the parent, the money, right? So if you have an insurable interest, a business partner, a parent, a sibling. I have policies on all my kids, that I use to fund their various little expensive endeavors they want to do. Oh, Dad, I want to go to Europe. Okay, well, I'm borrowing against your policy. They don't know where it's coming from, but I'm using the money I've saved for them, or my parent contribution for their college, or all the little things that they need. Because see, the problem is we lock our money up in silos, right? And so you wonder, I can't save any money. Yes, you can. You just have to relook at what you're doing. The money's there. For most time, the money's there. Do you get tax refund? Oh yeah, it was $4,000. That means you're overpaying your taxes. Your W-4 is filled out wrong. Do you have a 401k? Yeah, how much you put in? I'll put in 10%. What do they match you to? 4. How much money do you have in savings? Oh, like $3,000. Well, what's the highest, best use of your money? You don't have enough liquidity. So if a problem comes up, you have to go put it on a credit card. So now you're still paying to use other people's bank, and you're still paying for decisions you made 3 years ago. And now you're transferring your wealth to the financial institution, because banking, see, people will look at banking, they think it's about insurance. They don't understand the problem. This is what Nelson said. Nelson Nash said, listen, if you don't know the problem, the solution doesn't matter, right? And so the problem is that 35 cents of every dollar that's entering into your household, your personal economy, is leaving in the form of debt to others, right? And it's because you're renting to banking function to other institutions that are sucking you dry. So you've got to recognize that, and then you've got to kind of, again, deconstruct your personal economy and put it back together. So if you have income, if you're a college student and you just graduated, you're making 30 grand a year, can you save 15% of your income? I make them save 20. Mm-hmm. And some of it's going to the bank. Matter of fact, I might make you put it all in the bank for 3 or 4 months, and let's see if you can exercise your savings muscle. And then I'll say, okay, now once you can do that, now we'll move some of it over into your banking policy. So it's really, I start people with cash flow management. Most wealth is lost by how people manage cash flow. So it's, are you coachable? Are you willing to have the discipline to manage your cash flow? Step 1. And step 2, once I've seen that you have that, then we can basically begin to transfer some of that capital over into a better storage facility, life insurance, right? Because some people I won't let do it because you don't have the discipline. You're not making enough money. You're not making money, or you're making $100 and you're spending 110. So now we got to get your cash flow under control. We might have to look at how to, restructure your debt. So we'll go into debt management. It's like, what's the problem? So we look at the situation. So what's the problem? Can we reposition some other assets and maybe use infinite banking to help you recapture your debt? I mean, it's a lot of different ways to use it. It depends on the problem.
Curtis, as we wrap up,
these are all long answers. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, this is like really good stuff. Thanks very much. So as we move toward wrapping this up, where can people reach out to you? Where can people learn from you, work with you?
So with one of the best ways, we talked about this, put in the show notes, just go to www.practicalwealthsolutions.net and follow the podcast and or in our YouTube channel, so you can the podcast is the Practical Wealth Show. So that way you can we've been doing about 4.5 years, so you can get used to what I call the madness that is Curtis. And in the links in the show, we have a little short, not short, about an hour webinar, intro webinar called Becoming the Bank. And we say, look, you can be a customer of a bank, or you can be the bank. So I'm really big on education. So do some of that before you call me. Then if you feel good about that, then you can actually, make an appointment or something that will pop up to say, apply to work with Curtis, and you can actually go and we'll do initial complimentary strategy session and get to know each other and see if we're a good fit. But I'm big on education, on giving homework and teaching people, because it's your money, it's not Curtis's money. So those are the things I'd have them do. Plus I have a little report. We talked about this before. If you guys will text Be the Bank, so all caps, all one word, no spaces, Be the Bank to 55444, and I will send you a report called it's called Creating Wealth Using the Velocity of Money, because I want people to really understand that economic concept. So it's nothing to do with product. It's just understanding the concept of velocity, because that's really what you guys got to learn how to get into. And then what we do is help people, implement that stuff, where our financial planning is based around creating principles, then implementing a strategy, and then implementing tactics to do that, and then following up. And I make sure we have programs where I'm either quarterly or annually, I'm making sure you're better off every year than you met me every year. So we measure that, because that's very trackable. And that's my goal, is to teach you principles that help you become and remain financially free. That's the whole objective of Practical Wealth. That's why we exist.
I love it. And Curtis, America needs you. America needs more people like you who are teaching this stuff. So thanks for all the hard work that you do, and keep it up.
It's work, but I love it.
For those watching on YouTube, I love the slogan that you have in your background. It says, your economic situation is a matter of choice, not chance. And Curtis, I couldn't agree more. Thanks very much for your time today, and see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money Seat Podcast. Please remember to click like and subscribe. It really helps spread the message to other investors, and it helps attract new viewers to the show. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much.